You ever stop and wonder why some folks who, you know, cruise through school end up in a totally different place than people who maybe didn't shine so brightly in class?
Mm-hmm.
I was thinking about this story. David, straight A student, right? Picture of success on paper. Gets a stable office job, the kind everyone said he should want.
Safe route.
Exactly. Then there's Mike. Spent more time messing with bikes, taking them apart, rebuilding them, than studying.
Oh, okay.
And guess what? Years later, Mike owns a whole chain of bike shops. And David,
Let me guess. Working for Mike.
working for Mike, yeah,
Yeah.
fixing the computers. It just makes you ask, what's the real measure of success here?
It's fascinating, isn't it? Stories like that, they really, they shine a spotlight on the different kinds of intelligence, the ones that lead to success.
Right.
We put so much emphasis on the academic side, but thriving in the real world, especially, building wealth, building a life you actually like, that often taps into a completely different skill set.
So are we valuing the right kind of smarts?
Yeah. That's the big question, isn't it?
Exactly. And that's what we're really going to dive into today. We're going to unpack this whole idea of like school smarts versus life smarts.
Good way to put it.
We'll look at why, having a wall full of diplomas doesn't automatically pave the way to being financially okay, and why understanding the nuts and bolts of how money works, picking up those practical real-world skills, why that can really change the game.
Yeah, the material we've looked at has some great insights there. Developing financial intelligence, getting those hands-on skills, even cultivating the right mindset to make it all work.
So think of this as like your fast track, getting you informed on those crucial life skills that, well, often get skipped in regular school.
Our mission here really is to pull out the practical lessons, those aha moments, the stuff that can help you build a more prosperous, more satisfying life. Doesn't matter what your school record looks like.
Okay, so let's kick things off. What do we actually learn in school? I mean, years of facts, formulas, dates, grammar rules. Sometimes it feels a bit disconnected, right?
Yeah. That's a fair starting point. Traditional education definitely gives you a foundation. It focuses a lot on theoretical knowledge, remembering stuff, applying rules in like a structured academic way.
But here's what gets me, what's missing. I mean, seriously, how many of us had a class that really broke down personal finances?
Not many.
Or explained taxes properly? Or gave you a roadmap for starting a business? Or even just the basic idea of acquiring assets, things that make you money?
That is a huge gap. Academic knowledge is valuable, no doubt. Lots of careers need it, helps critical thinking. But applying it to personal finance or building wealth, often it's just not there.
It feels indirect at best.
Right. The system seems geared towards making people good employees within existing structures, maybe. Not necessarily financially independent people or, entrepreneurs.
And it feels like school rewards memory, right?
Sure.
And following instructions really, really well. The student who follows the guidelines perfectly gets the A+ stack. But what about, like, good judgment? Or encouraging people to question things? Sometimes it feels like those aren't the top priorities.
That's a sharp observation. The structure, the way schools are set up, often emphasizes conformity, following the rules.
Sticking to the script.
Exactly. And while you need some order, obviously, it can kind of stifle that independent thinking, that spirit of inquiry you really need for business, or making smart money moves.
No, we're not saying education isn't important, obviously.
Not at all.
But it almost feels like we're talking about two different kinds of intelligence. You can ace your exams, but that doesn't automatically mean you know how to manage money or, navigate the real world of building wealth.
Precisely. Academic intelligence and financial intelligence. They're different. Valuable, yes, but different. Financial intelligence is more practical. It's understanding how money works, how to manage it, make it grow. And you often learn that outside the classroom through experience.
Okay, so that brings us to the power of, actively seeking out financial education. The sources had these really striking examples, didn't they?
They did. Very memorable.
Like, the doctor makes tons of money, but is drowning in debt. And then you contrast that with the unassuming janitor who just quietly saved and invested and ended up wealthy. Those stories really make you stop and think.
They're incredibly powerful because they show so clearly that financial success isn't just about how much you earn or how many degrees you have.
That's what you do with it.
Fundamentally, yes. It's how you manage the resources you have, whatever the amount is to start with.
It's like that saying, it's not how much money you make, it's how much money you keep. And that really hits home. Money seems to stick with people who actually understand it.
Absolutely. Understanding the principles, managing, investing, growing your money, that's the key. It's about becoming financially literate, making smart choices for the long haul.
And there was that Brian Tracy quote that stuck with me. The key to success is to focus our conscious mind on things we desire, not things we fear.
Ugh, yes. Powerful quote.
It made me think how many people are actually kind of scared of money. They avoid learning about it, feel awkward talking about it.
Yeah, it's a common block.
And because of that fear, they never really figure out how to make it work for them.
That fear and avoidance, it's a huge obstacle.
Yeah.
If you shy away from it, you stay uninformed, you miss opportunities. It becomes this cycle. Fear leads to doing nothing, which means you don't learn.
So when we talk about being financially educated, what are we actually talking about? What are the core things someone needs to get a handle on?
Okay, so at its heart, financial education covers a few key things, all connected. You've got the basics of saving and investing smartly, understanding how to make income from assets, not just your job.
Right, not just trading time for money.
Exactly. Grasping cash flow, managing debt effectively, knowing how taxes impact things, and maybe most importantly, thinking long-term with your money, not just about today.
Okay, I really like this next point too, thinking outside the box. Because school, well, it does tend to encourage fitting in, right?
Yeah.
Color inside the lines, follow the rules. Don't question the established way too much.
That's a fair point. The structure often prioritizes sticking to the norms, the known methods, which has its place, building a knowledge base. But yeah, it can sometimes dampen that creative, unconventional problem solving.
But when you look at people who achieve really amazing things, it often comes from challenging that status quo, right? Venturing out, thinking differently, taking calculated risks.
Precisely. Real innovation, big progress. It often comes from people willing to question things, explore paths others ignore, stepping outside the comfort zone.
And going back to Mike, our bike shop guy,
Yeah,
he wasn't afraid to just dive in, tinker, maybe fail.
learn from the mistakes.
Yeah, learn from the stumbles, get back up, try again. His learning was all hands-on, real world, not just theory from a book.
Mike's story is a great example of that experiential learning. Trying, failing, adapting in the real world. That's a powerful teacher, sometimes more powerful than just the classroom stuff.
The source used a great analogy, learning to drive compared to financial intelligence. School gives you the driver's manual, all the rules.
Right, the theory.
But then life is actually driving. In traffic, unexpected road closures, detours. And financial intelligence is knowing how to navigate when things don't go according to the plan, figuring it out on the fly.
That's an excellent analogy. Captures the unpredictable part of life perfectly. And the need for adaptability, practical problem solving, skills you hone through experience, not just books. Financial smarts help you handle those unexpected money detours.
Okay, so it's not just knowledge, it's also practical skills. These life tools they mentioned, beyond academics. What kind of tools are we talking about?
Yeah, these life tools. It's a wide range, really. Skills you absolutely need. Things like communicating effectively, negotiating.
Oh, negotiation's a big one.
Huge. Managing your time well, understanding how to invest, the art of selling, leadership, all crucial.
And it's amazing how many of those aren't explicitly taught in a standard classroom. I mean, maybe you do presentations, but real negotiation, leading a team effectively, often learned on the job or through other ways.
That's a key point. The foundational knowledge is important, sure, but these practical skills, they're often what really drives success out there. They let you use your knowledge effectively.
Exactly. You can have all the degrees in the world, but if you can't manage your money or lead people or solve everyday problems, you can feel pretty stuck, right? Even with all that education.
It really highlights that academic qualifications alone often aren't enough for, building that prosperous, fulfilling life. These practical life tools are the bridge between knowing stuff and actually doing stuff successfully.
Okay, let's shift into part two. This idea that just having a pile of money doesn't automatically fix everything.
Right.
The lottery winner example is classic, isn't it? People win big, and then a few years later, they're back where they started, or worse.
It's a really stark reminder, that phenomenon. True wealth is more about financial competence, understanding money, than just having a big bank balance. Without the skills to manage it, it just disappears.
It's like giving someone the keys to a Formula One car when they've never driven before.
Perfect analogy, yeah. The potential's there, but without the skill, disaster's likely.
So bottom line, it's about understanding money, not just possessing it.
Precisely. Sustainable wealth, long-term security. It's built on that foundation of financial literacy, making smart, strategic decisions over the long run.
Which leads nicely into assets versus liabilities. Sometimes that sounds a bit jargony.
Yeah.
But the way the source put it was super simple. Assets put money in your pocket. Liabilities take money out.
That is the absolute core distinction. An asset generates income or grows in value, adding to your worth. A liability is an obligation that drains your cash. Simple as that.
And they gave good, concrete examples. Assets like a small business, rental property income, stocks that pay dividends.
Or even creating something yourself, like a book or a course that keeps selling.
Yeah, things that work for you.
Exactly. They put money in your pocket. They're investments.
And then liabilities.
Yeah.
The new car with the monthly payments that never seem to end.
The big house with the mortgage and upkeep.
Credit card debt.
All things that take money out of your pocket, they consume resources, don't generate them.
And this was interesting at the point that your own house, your primary residence, it isn't always an asset in the way we think.
Right. That trips people up sometimes. It can appreciate, sure, over the very long term, but month to month. With the mortgage, taxes, insurance, repairs,
It's taking money out.
it often behaves more like a liability in terms of cash flow. It doesn't usually put passive income in your pocket.
I like the metaphors they used. Assets are like seeds you plant, they grow, give you fruit. Liabilities are like pets you have to keep feeding.
Yeah, those are good. Easy to picture. They really drive home the difference. Focus on planting more seeds, less on acquiring pets you constantly feed.
Now, a big hurdle for people is thinking you need tons of money to start investing or building assets.
Yeah, that's a common belief. A big mental block.
But the source really pushed back on that. Start small, think big.
That's such a crucial message. So empowering. The idea you need a huge pile of cash stops so many people before they even start. But wealth building is usually gradual, small, consistent steps.
They suggested things like just invest in a book first, learn a skill, or try selling something you make. A small online store, handmade crafts.
Totally accessible starting points. You don't need huge capital, and you learn valuable business skills along the way, too.
And that example of the client who started a candle business, making maybe $50 a month at first.
Yeah, I remember that.
But over a few years, it grew into something way more substantial. It just shows that starting with what you have, being consistent, it works.
That story nails it. It's about resourcefulness, perseverance, not waiting for perfect conditions or tons of cash. Just start with what you've got, put in the effort, let it grow.
And that Tony Robbins quote, "It's not the lack of resources that stops us, but the lack of resourcefulness."
Boom, that captures it perfectly. Often the real barrier isn't no money, it's a lack of creativity, initiative, not figuring out how to use what you do have.
Okay, so building assets. Then there was building multiple streams of income. The analogy they used was great standing under a tree with one apple versus a tree full of apples.
Yeah, that paints a clear picture. Diversifying your income, relying on just one source, like one job, it makes you vulnerable, right? If that one apple falls.
You're in trouble. But if you have other streams, maybe some rent, an online thing, investments.
Other apples on the tree.
Right, you're much more secure. It's a safety net.
Exactly. Reduces dependence on any one thing. Gives you stability. If one stream slows down, the others can cushion the blow.
And the advice was practical. Start with just one extra stream, then maybe add another later. Even small amounts add up, give you more freedom.
It's about building that diversified income portfolio. Even little streams compound over time, make a real difference to your overall financial health. Less stress, more options.
Now, this next one is tough for a lot of people, I think. Trading time for money. Most jobs are like that, right? Hourly salary.
The standard model for many.
But the source pointed out, the moment you stop working, the income stops too. It feels like a treadmill sometimes.
That's the basic limitation of that linear income. Your earnings are tied directly to your hours. There's a ceiling. And it's insecure if you can't work. Illness, job loss, whatever.
So the goal becomes building passive income. Money that keeps coming in, even when you're not actively working on it right then.
Passive income. That's the dream for many, right?
Sounds like freedom.
It's a powerful concept, definitely key for long-term financial independence. You set up systems or acquire assets that generate income with less ongoing effort. Decouples your time from your earnings.
They gave good examples. Online courses people buy over and over, dividend stocks, rental properties, writing ebooks.
All solid strategies. Things that leverage your knowledge or capital or assets you already have to create recurring income without you constantly trading hours for it.
The river analogy was cool. Build the river once, and it keeps flowing, even while you sleep.
That's a great way to visualize it. It often takes upfront work, sure, time, effort, maybe money to build that stream. But once it's flowing, it can be pretty continuous, adding a lot to your security.
And they really stress that learning doesn't stop when school ends.
Oh, absolutely not.
In fact, it's almost like the real education, especially about money, starts after formal schooling.
That's spot on. School gives a foundation, but continuous learning, self-education, that's essential. The world changes. You need to keep up, learn the skills for financial success specifically.
They mentioned reading The Richest Man in Babylon and how it totally shifted their view on money.
Classic book.
It just shows the power of taking initiative, seeking out knowledge yourself.
Self-directed learning books, podcasts, courses, mentors, it can be so transformative. You focus on what you need, learn at your own pace.
And it's about reading for growth, right? Not just entertainment, actively learning. Even just a little bit each day adds up massively over time.
That consistent, focused learning, even tiny bits daily, it compounds, leads to huge progress eventually. It's about committing to keep expanding your knowledge, your skills.
Okay, part 3. This whole idea that success really starts in your mind, your mindset. That Joe Dispenza quote was powerful. To change is to think greater than your environment.
Yeah. That really makes you stop and think, doesn't it? It sums up how critical our mindset is in shaping our reality, our thoughts, our beliefs, that inner talk. It hugely influences our actions and what happens to us. If you want different results, you often need to start by thinking differently.
It's like that contrast between poor thinking, always, I can't, I'm not good enough.
Limiting beliefs.
Yeah. Versus rich thinking. Focusing on solutions, seeing possibilities, believing you can figure things out.
A scarcity mindset focuses on lack, talks negatively to itself, and often creates that negative reality. But a growth mindset, focused on abundance, possibilities, believing you can learn and grow, that opens doors, fosters creative solutions.
And the source said changing your financial situation often starts right there, changing your mindset about money and what you're capable of.
Exactly. Thoughts are the seeds for actions. Actions determine results. So, consciously cultivating a more positive, empowering inner dialogue about money that can create real, tangible changes financially.
Which ties right into adopting a growth mindset. Believing you can develop your abilities through effort versus a fixed mindset where you think talent is just innate, unchangeable.
That's the core difference. Growth mindset embraces challenges, persists through setbacks, sees effort as the way to get better, knows learning is ongoing. Fixed mindset avoids challenges, gives up easy, sees effort as pointless, feels threatened by others' success.
They told that story about Lena, remember? Stressed about money, took a free online budgeting class.
Yeah, right, the budgeting class.
Just by adopting that growth mindset, believing she could learn and improve, she turned things around. It wasn't a new job. It was a shift in her approach, her beliefs.
Lena's story is a great real-world example. Believing she could learn, develop new skills that led her to take action, which led to a huge improvement financially.
So it's about saying, okay, this is where I am now, but I can get better, instead of this is just me, things won't change.
Yeah.
That distinction feels massive.
It's pivotal, yeah. A growth mindset means your current situation doesn't define your potential. It's all about progress, believing you can evolve.
Another big one. Taking full responsibility. Not just blaming outside stuff or playing the victim.
Taking responsibility is incredibly empowering. It flips the script. You go from feeling like stuff just happens to you to being the one driving your life. Acknowledging external factors exist, sure, but you control your responses, your choices, your actions.
The metaphor they used was good. Blaming is like sitting in a parked car, hoping it moves. Taking responsibility is getting behind the wheel and steering, even if it's slow going at first.
That really clarifies it, doesn't it? Passivity versus agency. Responsibility puts you in the driver's seat. You take control, work towards your goals, instead of waiting for things to change for you.
And this is such a huge shift, seeing failure not as like the end or proof you're no good,
Right.
but as feedback, a learning opportunity.
Reframing failure that way is classic growth mindset. It lets you pull lessons from setbacks, figure out what went wrong, use that info to do better next time.
They compared it to working out. It's hard at first, maybe painful, but you get stronger. Failures give you info, guide you to a better path.
Exactly. Failure is data. Helps you refine your strategy, adjust course, increase your odds of success later. It's just part of learning and growing, usually a necessary part.
And that Denzel Washington quote, if you don't fail, you're not even trying.
Ooh, yeah. Powerful.
It's a reminder that stepping outside your comfort zone, going for big goals, it means you might stumble.
It really underlines that taking calculated risks, trying new things. It's essential for real growth, and failure is part of that package. But it's through those attempts and learning from the stumbles that you actually make progress.
The people you hang out with came up too, how much they influence you. You tend to become like them.
Our social environment, it has a huge impact, often more than we realize, on our beliefs, attitudes, habits, our success. You kind of soak up the energy and perspective of your circle.
So the advice was, actively seek out positive people, people who support you. Talk about ideas and growth, not just gossip, people building something themselves.
Surrounding yourself with growth-minded people, it's invaluable. Gives you encouragement, inspiration, practical insights. Creates an environment that supports growth, makes big goals feel possible.
They suggested joining groups, finding mentors who've done what you want to do, even following inspiring people online to lift your own thinking.
All great strategies. Connect with a supportive community, learn from people who've walked the path.
Then there's choosing long-term over short-term thrills, resisting get-rich-quick stuff, focusing on building wealth slowly, strategically.
Sustainable wealth, real security. It's rarely built overnight, usually takes patience, discipline, focusing on long-term value, not chasing quick, risky returns.
The bamboo plant store is a great picture of that. For years, nothing seems to happen above ground.
But the roots are growing deep underground.
Right. Then suddenly, whoosh, it shoots up like crazy.
That bamboo analogy, it shows perfectly how much foundational work, stuff you don't see, goes into big, lasting growth. Underscores patience, trusting the process, even when you don't see results right away.
And finally, turning dreams into actual daily actions. It's not enough to just want financial freedom. You gotta take small steps regularly.
Action, that's the bridge between wanting and having. Consistent daily effort, even tiny steps, builds momentum over time, gets you towards those big goals.
They gave examples like read one page of a finance book daily, check your spending, make a tiny investment, reach out to someone inspiring. Small things add up.
Those seemingly small daily actions build momentum, create good habits. They're the building blocks for big, lasting change.
And they finished with that great saying, don't wait for perfect, just start with possible. Such good advice to beat procrastination.
So wise, so liberating. Perfectionism is often just procrastination in disguise, right? Taking a perfect action is almost always better than waiting forever for the perfect moment that never comes.
So just to wrap it up quickly, we've talked about how school doesn't always give you the financial smarts you need, the huge importance of actively building that financial intelligence, getting multiple income streams going,
Crucial.
and how your mindset really is the foundation for any kind of lasting success.
That's a great summary of the key pieces. It's a whole approach, practical skills, and the inner beliefs you need to build that prosperous, fulfilling life.
So for everyone listening, I really hope this deep dive gave you some valuable things to think about. Financial well-being isn't some exclusive club. It really is possible for anyone willing to learn, adopt good habits, cultivate that growth mindset. Doesn't matter where you started or what grades you got.
Absolutely.
I really encourage you. Take just one small step today. Pick up a book, save $1, look into learning a new skill. Just one thing.
And remember, it's a journey, right? Continuous learning, growing, adjusting. Be patient with yourself as you build these new skills and perspectives, and celebrate the small wins along the way. They matter.
Couldn't agree more. And on that note, I'll leave you with this final thought to chew on. Success isn't a sprint. It's more like a lifelong path. Your unique path. The wisdom path. So keep reflecting on your journey, stay curious, and keep learning.